It is Monday, December 17th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was very fun. Get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. Can't remember a lot of what we were actually going over today. Although it was a little slower class. And, I mean, dude, I've been trying my hardest to get to class on time, but for some fucking reason, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I could be like leaving the house or like exiting the door with an extra 20 minutes to get there. And no matter what, something's going to happen between the time I leave my door and get into their door that will prevent me from getting there on time. I don't know what it is. It's been that way for like at least the last, I want to say 3 weeks. They've been doing some work on the freeway, and so it's like right at the exit where I need to get off, and so it backs up traffic for like a half a mile or so and really slows it down. And I've tried multiple ways to get there, and it seems like all of the major thoroughfares that get there have this same exact problem. And primarily because they're the main thoroughfares that people use to get to and from work, and it happens to coincide right in time for people to get off of work. So there is that. But as far as what we went over today, I'm having a little difficulty remembering. Oh, that's why. Chokes. We were doing a variation of the I want to say it's like an arm and guillotine. Yeah, it's kind of an arm and guillotine. And but it's a really weird approach to it. It's like if you're going on somebody's back, but then you like sit out to the side and hook over their opposite shoulder and catch them underneath with your other hand, squeeze that in, and then kind of bring them down a little bit further and get your other leg up over their back and just squeeze. And for whatever reason, I kept getting the hand grip wrong. And the last gentleman that I was working with he's got a very long body, and so when it didn't help my body positioning when trying to line him up for this guillotine, or I don't know. It's kind of an I want to say almost an arm triangle. It's like somewhere between an arm triangle and a guillotine. I mean, because it's got the arm in like the triangle, but the squeeze and the angle on it kind of puts you at the same angle as a guillotine. But the grip is different though, and so trying to pull it off with an S grip is not really all that functional. I suppose you'd have to have the right like hip angle to your opponent and whatnot to be able to get that one in there. But it's definitely a neat choke and something that I'll have to work on for at least a year before I can even get close to saying that I know what the fuck I'm doing on it. But yeah, today was a little bit of a refresher of things that came to us from Megaton Diaz's gym, and so. Like I said, it was a bit of rehashing of stuff that we had previously gotten from there. Honestly, I enjoyed it, and I think I really needed the I don't know, the re-up, the re-education on it, or the reminder. But the one thing that I had, I got relatively easy, was the knee bar. And it's if you're in the same position, but like for whatever reason it's not going well or whatever, that you want to shift down, and if you've got a hook in, to push the hook through until your toes are on the other side of the calf, and then just kind of squeeze that ankle in a little bit. And I found it was easier for me if I trapped the outside of my opponent's right leg, if I'm stepping my right leg in between theirs to get in that hook, that I liked it better if I had my left leg just to the outside of their right leg. And that way, when I press down on them, they aren't really able to have any of their weight shifted, into me, to say try and roll through it or something like that. But I noticed that it kept it a little bit tighter, and then so when I did sit down, all I had to do then was sneak my toes behind my ankle, and I've got that leg pretty well trapped. And it's just a matter then of reaching down and grabbing it, and then pulling up on the toes and tap, 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 or broken leg, one of the two. But anyway, that was I really enjoyed that one, and I think if I were to work that a little bit, I could see that coming into my repertoire and being a kind of a mainstay, because it doesn't seem like a really typical way to go with that. I mean, typically if you get that leg in, you've got the hook in. It's just a matter of getting the other hook in then and going for that choke, taking the back. But it's kind of disconcerting because you don't really have to change your pressure all that much to just slide off to one side and get that leg tucked really, really tight. So yeah, that's pretty much what we covered today. I did go in yesterday for a little bit of open mat, and it was reassuring and yet disconcerting at the same time. I warmed up and ran through a couple techniques, or at least one technique, several times with one of the new black belts there, and that was a pleasure. But that was just like the warm up, and then I transitioned over to rolling with a guy that just completely tore me up. And I'm not even going to name him, because the guy, when he rolls, I get this feeling off of him that like he'd be just as at home if this were happening in Brazil in a fucking Gracie gym. Like he to me, he's got the physicality and the mindset for it. He's very, very disciplined. He's fairly healthy. But he definitely moves like he knows what the fuck he's doing. And so, like I said, I'm not even going to name him, because you run into him in a dark alley, I don't even want you to have a warning. Because knowing this guy, he's very, very kind, very, very gentle. Knowing this guy, if you pissed him off, you probably deserved it. Anyway, so I got to roll with him, and that was very disconcerting, because he just kept tapping me and tapping me and tapping me, and I was cool with that, because that's what I'm there for, is to learn not to get tapped by someone even of his caliber. So unfortunately, I did not learn that lesson yesterday. I rolled with him quite a bit and got really warmed up that way, and then I rolled with a gentleman who was a white belt, and I was able to kind of pass the pain down a little bit. Although, I've been going out of my way to try and be a little gentle, but I was definitely technique oriented, and it was another one of those rolls for me where my opponent just really didn't stand much of a chance. And I mean, those are good every once in a while, but you can't live on them, because you get this hyper-inflated ego about your moves and whatnot. And then, of course, you roll with somebody like the guy that I mentioned before, and he just completely destroys you, and you're just like, why the fuck am I here? Why have I been doing this for so long? I obviously haven't learned anything, because this guy just tore me a new asshole. But, you need to experience it. Like I said, you need to hit it every once in a while like that, just to give you an idea of what your place in the pecking order really is. And even so, I'll tell you what, if this guy was going like full hard on me, I wouldn't have even lasted as long as I did. He was being easy on me. He was still tapping me every fucking 10 seconds. Sad. Terrible. One of these days, man. One of these days I'm going to get you. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it down into some music. And I haven't done this in a while, and I'm definitely feeling like this is the mood of the week. A lot of hungry people on the sidelines. They're looking to find that value purchase and make that money. So here it is. The Ski Mask Way by Body Count. First Dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Sixth with Part of the Friction. and we're all part of the friction here in crypto. And somebody had brought up something in the Verge Currency Discord. I'd been talking last week about some filtration issues that I was having, and really, I think that anybody who's done the ice water method for trying to yield your trichromes out of your trim and your big leaves and your twigs and stuff like that, that you've all had this issue where... What? You AFK still? No, I'm right here, man. Oh, he's asking Bane 20. Never mind. The issue is this, that no matter how small your mesh is on your bubble bags, there's always some material that gets down through it. And usually people just discard this. But see, the thing is that I work the shit out of my trim. I mean, I got this blender thing that, man, let me tell you, thousands of RPMs and just, knocking the shit out of those trichromes, trying to get them out of the stuff, right? Well, I think part of the problem is that, by doing that, I knock loose a lot of chlorophyll, and so my shit's a little bit green, but that's not that big a deal. The thing is I was interested in whatever material that I got that was actually smaller than the mesh, the smallest of my meshes. And so that was kind of challenging because I got really, really tiny meshes on my smallest bag. So all of the material that was left in the water was pretty much suspended in it. Okay? Because it was just that light that it takes a long time for it to settle. And so I did find out that the material that I really want, it'll settle probably the quickest out of anything in it. If I leave it for a couple days, more of it will settle and so on and so forth. But the material I've got sitting now, I'm having to do some really radical things with regard to trying to get the material I want out of it. And one of the ideas I had was freezing it. And that I have yet to play that one out fully, but I have a feeling that when I'm done with it, what I'm going to end up having is that all of the chlorophyll will be on top of the material that I want, because it'll be lighter than the material I want, and that the water will separate out from both. Now, how that will play out in reality, I have no idea, but we got to experiment. 'Cause I don't know. I feel like I'm losing what would be possibly the best material out of my hash making by throwing it out with the water. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to rend out the last bits of the good stuff. And I'm actually looking at a chunk right now. And it's a couple grams that I managed to get out of one of my bags, and I got another 2 of them that I'm working on right now. The last one, I was getting ready to toss it out, but I started draining it into another bucket, and I looked at the water, and it was full of the material that I want. So I obviously had bled off the material that I don't want and gotten into the material that I do want. So that's why I'm freezing it right now. I'm hoping that freezing it will cause it to kind of congeal, because it sticks to itself really, really well. And that's part of the process of making it into quote-unquote hash, is working out all the water and all the shit, and you squeeze the shit out of it to get it out. And that's pretty effective, but you gotta get it, enough of it together that you can squeeze it together like clay, And so yeah, that's the process that I was talking about, is trying to get the water out of it. And I've come up with a few ideas, but the freezing part is the first in those steps. And so I'm working on that right now. I was hoping that it was going to get cold enough outside that it would just do it outside and for free, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. All of a sudden we had a nice little warm front, and that changed everything. Anywho, let's get into some articles and shit. And as far as what we're going to get into today, I'm not entirely certain, but this one, I seem to have recalled where it was either the OCC or some other subdepartment of the U.S. Treasury is actually taking the NYDFS to court right now. And I don't know if they're in court at this moment, but I know that they were suing them or trying to get some clarity because the NYDFS basically objected to the Treasury redefining things to where other non-standard banks can get licensed as banks. And the NYDFS is like, no, that's our job. We're the only people that can make banks into banks. And the OCC is like, no, we're the U.S. Treasury. We do that. And so, like I said, they're in court right now. I'm really hoping that the government finds for itself, in its own interest instead of the NYDFS on that, because that would open things up and it would allow the U.S. government to be the primary definer of what a bank is, and no longer the NYDFS. And so anyway, I got this article here. It's on AmericanBanker.com. Bankers cry foul over Robinhood's checking and savings accounts. This is by Andy Peters, published December 14th, 2018 at 6:42 p.m. EST. Thank you, Andy, for being so very specific. And yes, penis. Bankers have a message for Robinhood Financial about its new checking and savings account products. Not so fast. Robinhood on Thursday announced its new banking products, each of which pay 3% interest. Consumers' deposits would be invested in, quote, the safest assets like treasuries, and would have the backing of the Securities Investor Protection Corp, but not the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp, the Menlo Park, California company said. The fintech's announcement raises numerous concerns that regulators should examine, said Chris Cole, Senior Regulatory Counsel for the Independent Community Bankers of America. It could be seen as deceptive that Robinhood is using terms banking, checking, and savings, he said. What, they got some sort of fucking copy or patent on that or copyright on that? No. Trademark? No. Quote, this is supposed to be a brokerage account, but they're running around making it look like a banking account, Cole said. It is especially concerning that Robinhood, quote, does not sufficiently explain the difference between SIPC protection and FDIC insurance, Cole said. The SIPC does not fully guarantee a depositor's entire original investment plus interest in the event of the failure of a brokerage. Instead, the SIPC reimburses investors the value of their funds on the day of insolvency. The ICBA has not yet contacted the SEC or other regulatory agencies with its concerns, Cole said. However, Stephen Harbeck, CEO of the SIPC, said he contacted the SEC's Trading and Markets Division immediately after learning of Robinhood's plans. Robinhood did not contact the SIPC about its plans to use its deposit protection program, Harbeck said in an interview Friday. Yeah, they lied to you. That's what they had to do to get you to sign. Get over it. Jack Randall, a spokesperson for Robinhood, declined to comment. Meanwhile, an American Banker interview previously scheduled for the company's headquarters on Friday was canceled. Robinhood was founded in 2013 by Vladimir Tenev and Baiju Bhatt. It is best known for its no-fee stock trading platform. The fintech has received venture capital backing from a long list of sources, including funds associated with Joshua Kushner, the brother of the White House advisor Jared Kushner. No conflict of interest here. And with the rapper Jay-Z. according to the investor data service Crunchbase. Robinhood is registered with the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, as a brokerage firm, but its description of its checking and savings accounts does not clearly spell out the difference between how a brokerage handles deposits compared to a bank. Quote, SIPC Insurance covers your checking, savings, and investments. Your cash and securities in Robinhood are protected by up to a total of $500,000 by the SIPC, $250,000 of which can be in cash, the rest in securities, Robinhood said in the help section of its website. Quote, similar to FDIC insurance, the SIPC protects cash in your account if the financial firm fails. Whatever. Banking groups took very close notice of how Robinhood worded the description of its products. Quote, consumer trust is critical to the safety and soundness of the banking system, and that is why it is so important that consumers have clear and accurate information about deposit insurance, Sarah Gano, a spokeswoman for the American Bankers Association, said in an email. Quote, we appreciate any effort by regulators to clarify when deposits are fully insured and when they are not, and the need to respond quickly is misrepresentations. My apologies, sir. Robinhood met with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency earlier this year, according to the source familiar with the matter. Some fintechs have considered, but later dropped the process of applying for an OCC fintech charter, Joseph Otting, Comptroller of the Currency, said on November 29th. There were probably 250 fintech companies that thought they wanted to be a bank, Otting said, but as people started to realize what it took to be a bank, that you had to have capital and liquidity and policies and procedures and risk management, often that's completely the opposite of what a fintech company is, which is quickness to market. It is unclear whether Robinhood was one of those 250 companies, although it's probably true that they were. It might find it tough sledding. My apologies, that looked like shedding. Sledding to remain a broker-dealer while entering the banking business without a bank charter. Because Robinhood is a broker-dealer that is marketing its checking and savings account as banking products, it is likely that some state banking regulators will examine how the products are structured, said Barry Hester, an attorney at Bryan Cove Leighton Paisner. Quote, many state laws have an exception for a registered broker-dealer to engage in banking activities, but only if it's incidental to their brokerage business, Hester said. But if Robinhood's checking and savings products are not considered to be incidental to its overall securities business, Robinhood runs the risk of being considered a, quote, unlicensed banking business, Hester said. Robinhood says it plans to launch the checking and savings account early next year. Yeah, I expect that to not work. It seems to me that from what I'm just reading here that they're trying to navigate some fucking gray area, some regulatory gray area where they can get licensed as a bank without being a bank, and then they're kind of like double covered there. I do think it's kind of a conflict of interest and not at all incidental that we should find some relation to Trump, some close relation to Trump, being somewhat embedded in this. But, you know, this is something that does need to happen. There does need to be pressure on the edges like this. Because if there isn't, we just accept the status quo and we end up in the same traps that we were in before. However, in the longer term, I don't really think Robinhood will be able to live up to its mandate. I mean, there have been people who have tried, and for the most part have failed. I couldn't name one right off the bat, but I'm as certain as you are that they've existed at one point or another. But I was talking about this with somebody earlier today on like Twitter or something like that, where the reason Bitcoin was set up the way it was is because they knew that if they were ever to be challenging the banking system in a direct way and in a significant way, that there would be regulatory scrutiny brought upon us. And so when they built Bitcoin originally, they built it to be as friction-free as possible, that you could get into it and get out of it very, very cheaply, and without anybody else's fucking say-so. You could just do it. And that's a choke point that is basically been used to apply all kinds of regulations and taxation to our traditional finance avenues, or markets rather. And so, you can only walk so far off the path before you end up in Trustville again. And you end up with regulators pointing at you saying, hey, you're running a bank. Hey, you're running an exchange. Hey, you're not licensed. You need to pay us. Give us some fucking money. I mean, and that's really all it boils down to. The idea that there's any real safety engendered by the participation of federal governments, it's fucking silly. All the fees, all the regulations that are experienced by Goldman Sachs and those at that level of banking and investment, those are operational expenses to them. They get feed for laundering billions of dollars. Oh, it's $10 million. Get that out of petty cash. We can make that in about 3 minutes of ordinary trading, so no problem. It's really sad that I think anyway that we've keep coming back to the same ideas with regard to trying to turn crypto into something that the bigs want. And I think that's a real big mistake. The fact that Bitcoin works as it does is features, not flaws here. Those aren't bugs. That was designed that way so that, we didn't have to deal with this bullshit. And it's funny because I keep getting people throwing up to me the idea that, mining was supposed to go industrial and we're supposed to just build on top of it and all. It's bullshit. The idea of of mining going industrial was an obvious destination, but it wasn't the only destination. And personally, I think that's one of those things that was a missell. That Satoshi kind of wrote that in there with the idea that we would be trying, that somebody out there would be trying to be the dominant one, would be trying to be the warehouse full of miners that's running everything. The problem with that is that you end up cutting out the interest part of Bitcoin, meaning that when you look back to when mining was at its peak diversity of sources, meaning the highest number of individual people were involved in mining, when you look back to then, it was actually profitable for them to do so. Not excessively so, but enough to at least recoup their expenses and keep the lights on. Maybe a little bit of food in their mouth, possibly, an upgrade in lifestyle. But that maintained their interest. And as soon as it was taken away from them when ASICs came online, or I shouldn't say taken away from them, but certainly reduced, you saw the pool of interest reduce as well. And so there's this whole idea that we're gonna rebound it with Lightning. That you're gonna be able to come back in real cheap. Oh yeah, wonderful. Yeah, until they start applying some regulation. There's a lot of ICOs that never would have even gotten off the ground if the SEC was making the same noises when they started as they are right now. If the SEC had come up and said, oh, hey, we looked over this ICO idea and we're telling you right now about 90% of these that you create are probably going to be classified as securities. And if they'd said that in a really, really loud voice, a lot of people would not have even bothered trying to launch a fucking ICO token on top of Ethereum. They would have just made a regular old altcoin and tried to compete that way. And I keep getting people talking about fucking atomic swaps. Let me ask you, if I'm using Verge, do you think I want to be using Bitcoin, or do you think I want to be exchanging it for Bitcoin? Not if it's in my wallet. If I'm doing business somewhere and I pay them in Verge and they're willing to accept Verge as a payment medium, then there's no real reason for me to worry about atomic swapping. I mean, why? Again, this is one of those points where you're going to run into somebody saying, hey, you're operating as an exchange, because you're not giving like for like, you're giving like for kind of like. You're acting as an arbiter there. If you're the one facilitating the transaction without being one of the two parties involved in the transaction. And then, of course, you're a custodian. And you fall under all that regulatory friction that we keep talking about. Now, I think the whole idea of atomic swaps is kind of silly, honestly. And I think that one of the places where it could be abused is where you're say transacted, say, Lightning Bitcoin for Ethereum, right? What if, we'll just say it, what if Lightning is evil and they don't really have a 2-to-1, two Lightning Bitcoin to 1 Bitcoin exchange rate? That's just fictional. They don't even have the 1 Bitcoin to back the 2 Bitcoin that they say they are, or that they say they have, rather, or the 2 Lightning Bitcoin, rather. And so you end up exchanging a good token, or a good currency, a good cryptocurrency, for something that's fictitious. Now, I developed a name for this a long time ago because I imagined it would happen with Ripple, where they would be cycling in coins that were not mined in the stead of coins that were mined, and that they would artificially inflate the number of coins in circulation and the number of coins available, and that they would be at any time able to adjust their fractional reserve status. So if it's at a 1-to-1 today, it could be at a 2-to-1 tomorrow, and it could be at a 4-to-1 the next day, and you don't know, and you are trusting them. See, I envisioned that this kind of thing would happen, and that enough of the fuck coins or fuck tokens would get circulated into the economy for somebody to notice the excess volume and be like, hey, yo, where are all these coins coming from? Why isn't my coin worth a shit? What the fuck is happening? And they look at the total volume available on one exchange, and it's way over the number that are supposed to ever be mined. And they'll look on another exchange, it's the same fucking thing over there. And we end up back where we were in 2008, with a lot of people that did not really have the coin, or did not really have the assets, exchanging their non-asset or inability to develop an asset for a real asset, and then being caught trying to pay it back with nothing. I think that's the position that all of these little bullshit digital derivatives are going to create. And Lightning Bitcoin is one of the first. Actually, Ripple would be the first. And so I'm, again, at this point where I do see this as a real threat. That circulating non-Bitcoin in the stead of real Bitcoin would threaten the balance. And that we might actually lose a significant amount of miners because they're like, I don't want to facilitate this bullshit. I'm going to move to another fucking currency. And all that shit that you builded on top of it just became worth shit. You know, you have no further to look than other crypto projects to see everything that can happen. Because it's already happened for somebody else here. You know, I titled the last episode that I made, it's always cheaper to learn from other people's mistakes than making your own. And it's absolutely true. Because it costs you process time. It costs you face with your customers. It costs you all kinds of shit to be repeating the same fucking mistakes that we've watched other people make for the last 9 years. And there have been plenty of them. You know, all of this shit over shifting to custodial methods and shit like that, it was all predicted by Satoshi. He saw right off that those were going to be friction points where some government or corporate interest would be able to develop a rent-seeking model. And so, you know, the fact that we keep running over that road again, it's just, it bores me. It makes me sad, really, you know, that we keep having to relive this one over and over and over and over again, you know, and people are willing to accept less and less and less. I hear people talking to me about trade-offs in Lightning. What the fuck? No. A trade-off is when I'm getting something for what I'm giving. And me giving up custody of my funds and putting them on a live node that may or may not get hacked, and I may or may not get fully compensated on, that's not a positive thing. Like it's a negative. Now, if I were getting something in return that was just so fucking wonderful, you know, like no taxes at all, or something to that effect. Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe when you're giving me something in return for me putting my funds up and making them available for other people to route their transactions through. Okay, but as far as I can see, it doesn't seem like it's giving me anything. It seems like it's putting me at a lot of risk. You know, not only on the point of somebody ganking my funds, but also on the point of regulatory friction. This is why Bitcoin was designed to work without a third party, because a third party could be a friction point where they would be experiencing licensing and registration and other things, fitness requirements, corporate fitness requirements, that would require them to have individuals that are in charge of certain things, which means paying people, which means their products become more expensive because now they don't just have to keep their own lights on and they don't just have to keep everything running right. No. They have to hire a whole bunch of people that they never fucking needed. They need to keep a bunch of records that they did not ever need to keep. And they need to be paying a whole bunch of fucking licenses for things that weren't even needed. And that's really where we're at with crypto, where you got people looking at the old model and saying, oh, well, we do something kind of like that, so we better hire somebody for it. You know? And get all these bankers in your executive offices giving you all their buzzwords to think in and all their paradigms to think in, none of which are really all that applicable with regard to cryptocurrencies, and a lot of assumptions made just to make them kind of fit. And then you end up right back in where we're talking about now, Trustville. Anyway, I got this next article here, and this is on CoinSpeaker, and this is one of those points, I think, of where somebody discovered cocaine or had a VC talking in both ears or something like that. VC funder or something like that talking in both ears about scaling and all that other bullshit. So here it is. Circle CEO, and mind you, Circle is owned by Goldman Sachs. Continuing on, remains bullish on Bitcoin, predicting all-around tokenization. Yeah, especially now that we're talking about Lightning Network. Oh, is that a coincidence? I don't think so. And this is by Polina Chernink. This is authored Monday, December 17th, 2018, 11:06 p.m. UTC. Jeremy Allaire, the co-founder and CEO of the fintech startup Circle, is being very optimistic about the future of Bitcoin, even despite the recent downturn in the cryptocurrency's value. In an interview to CNBC, the entrepreneur said he believes Bitcoin will skyrocket in the next 3 years, eventually driving all cryptocurrency valuations. While Allaire was reluctant to make specific predictions, he said the price of Bitcoin will be much higher than it is now. Quote, "I don't make significant price predictions," he told Squawk Box host Andrew Ross Sorkin. Quote, "but it's certainly going to be worth a great deal more than it's worth today." According to Allaire, the fact that the digital currency is used by so many people worldwide explains his positive predictions, and is one of the reasons to think that Bitcoin and Ethereum are oversold. Moreover, the fundamentals of digital currencies have not changed, what will continue to attract investors. As Allaire noted, Bitcoin will play a, quote, "very significant role as a store of value, despite its current price changes. Bitcoin," he said, "is unique when it comes to scalability and safety measures." Quote, "The key thing with Bitcoin is that it's unique in its security and scale, as an idea that we need a scarce, non-sovereign store of value that individuals can hold in a protected fashion. Bitcoin is attractive all around the world." The future of the crypto market. Allaire stated that the success of one digital currency doesn't mean the death of all the other tokens. He doesn't think the cryptocurrency market will end up being a winner. What? Instead, he believes Allaire believes there will be millions of crypto assets on the market, like securities, utility tokens, and commodities. Guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Anyway, continuing. "I do not think it's going to be a winner-take-all scenario." I agree there. "We have a phrase, the tokenization of everything. We think cryptographic tokens are going to represent every form of financial asset in the world. There will be millions of them in years." Bitcoin price predictions. Earlier this week, the co-founder of Fundstrat Global Advisor Tom Lee claimed that Bitcoin is now underestimated and it should be worth more than $13,000. I agree. Because he thinks the cryptocurrency could receive $150,000 per coin if the number of wallet addresses reached 315 million. Earlier this year, he already predicted that Bitcoin would reach $25,000 this year, but then lowered his forecast, saying the cryptocurrency would be worth $22,000. That's not much lower, dude. A former partner at Goldman Sachs, Mike Novogratz, shares positive opinions as well. The billionaire, who is an active Bitcoin supporter, said he is confident that the cryptocurrency will make a comeback despite a fall of over 80% from its all-time high. Another billionaire and VC investor, Jim Breyer, claims the technology is too big to be dismissed, noting that the current bearish trend on the crypto market will soon come to an end. Similarly, Tim Draper predicts the price of Bitcoin will continue growing in the years to come. Alright. Yeah, okay. Well, I will say this, that Bitcoin, in my opinion, will always go up in value, especially when you don't have things like stable coins distorting the relative value versus fiat currencies. And see, I believe there's a lot of counterfeiting going on there, that a lot of these stablecoin entities don't really have the funds that they say they do. They just get an exchange to agree on the lie, and everything is fine. But yeah, as far as Bitcoin going up in value, yeah, of course it's going to go up in value. And relative value to US dollars, hell yes it is. Why? Because the Federal Reserve will not stop printing them. The Federal Reserve keeps loaning more and printing more, and that makes the ones that are currently in circulation worth less. Supply and demand. It does not end just because a banker is the one issuing the supply. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where to go, I don't know, man. I covered a lot of good stuff the last time around. Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, here on Coin Metal. And that was Cavalera Conspiracy with Sanctuary. As far as where we're going next, I came across this little thing. It's kind of interesting to me. And apparently somebody's been receiving these more and more. Attention, important notice. In accordance with Section 1.4 of our Terms of Service, number 1, persons that are located in or a resident of the United States of America or Quebec, Canada, are prohibited from holding positions or entering into contracts at BitMEX. Number 2, persons that are located in or a resident of Cuba, Crimea, Sevastopol, Iran, Syria, North Korea, and Sudan, or any other jurisdiction where these services offered by BitMEX are restricted, are prohibited from holding positions or entering into contracts at BitMEX. BitMEX reserves the right to immediately close the accounts and to liquidate the open positions of persons determined to have breached our terms of service. It's kind of interesting. Clearly, BitMEX doesn't like getting hit with a bunch of restraining shit. But this is what I've been talking about with regard to regulations and whatnot. The fact of the matter is, there's no reason why people in the United States shouldn't be able to deal with BitMEX. But, somebody's regulatory overreach says that the SEC or the CFTC or somebody else can come in and say, no, you can't trade with United States citizens. Blah, blah, blah. You know what? VPNs are a thing, as somebody did comment on there. So, I think that it's sad that we do have to play these games, but if the United States government is going to be the way that they are being, and the state governments are being the way that they are being with regard to cryptocurrencies, they're just going to find themselves further and further behind the fold. And I've said that innumerable times on the show, and it's because I absolutely believe it. That, we'll end up some fucking digital gulag here in the United States. Supposedly, land of the brave, home of the free, and all that other bullshit. And we're being drawn into constant conflict with these regulations that really don't offer us anything additional. When we're trading on the altcoin exchanges or whatever, I think the average person involved knows the risks involved and is managing their funds as they see fit. And it's been going that way for about 10 years now? Almost 10 years. And if you look at it, yeah, there's been failures out there. But for each one of those, there's been fantastic successes. Those are just little aberrations, little growing pains in this market. But, overall, we find that if you make good, you're still here. I mean, that's pretty much it. And you're limited by that. If you don't continue to make good, people will move their money elsewhere. And I predict that that's going to be the case well into the future. That's basically the new status of money. And I believe that we are going to go back to an era where politicians will have to be petitioning you, not some fucking lobbyist from Monsanto or GE or somebody else like that, or GMAC. They're going to be talking to you, or at least they're going to be stumping for you, meaning coming to your town and representing you, being of your hometown and representing you, representing their district. And I think that's going to be a product of the shifting of funds. We're going to understand very, very quickly, I think, that the central banking paradigm that we've existed on is faulty, that it rewards activities that no rational person would ever accept, and that ultimately proves to corrupt our financial system irreparably, and our political system irreparably. Because our politicians, they want to get reelected, and that means they need to earn money, or they need to raise capital for their election campaigns. And so obviously they're going to listen to the people that had the most money before they listen to the people that don't have any money. That's how that works, because they want to get reelected, and that costs money. That's not to say that the representative system is entirely destroyed or anything like that. It's just saying that the balance of power has been misaligned to be in line with the interests of those who provide the money, who make the money, i.e. the central banks. And so when they're investing in businesses, they invest in businesses that they believe will help them secure their business, And so one of those obviously is oil. If they can keep us dependent on oil, hey, everything is wonderful. But as we can see when we look out there are various international entities right now trying to negate having to experience the friction with the United States at all. And they're starting it where they really need to, which is at the currency level. And the United States has been really how should I say this? They've been very aggressive in maintaining the monopoly status of the bankers. And they've gone so far as to displace leaders that were intent on bringing online a gold standard currency for their country to be buying and selling their oil in. And that threatened the position of the US dollar, and so those leaders are no longer leading anymore. And if you need any help finding that, Google will help you find it. But anyway, the point being that's ensured the continual misexpenditure of people's capital. I mean, there are 1,000,001 policies and actions being conducted right now on your tax dollar that if you really had the option to say yes, no, you would have been saying no. Because you're looking at it and you're like, no, that doesn't look like it's in my long-term best interest, so no, I don't want to fund that. And I think that we're going to get back around again to that being the case with regard to our relationship with our government. That we're going to be evaluating their performance, exactly what they did, what they didn't do, how they represented us, and we're going to be like, you know what? I don't think I want to give you as much money this time around because, you ignored me this last time and you didn't do what I told you to do and you did what that guy told you to do instead. And no, you don't deserve my money because I don't want to fund the policies that you're pushing. We've been basically forced to pay for wars against ourselves. The war against drugs, you know where all the money for that comes from. That comes from you, paying taxes and all that. So it's like, it's one of those things that, if you really had the option, if you thought about it for 2 seconds, like, do I really give a fuck if my next door neighbor is high right now? No. I don't. I don't give a fuck if he's like bathing in a big pool of nothing but buds. That's his business. It's not impacting me at all. So no, I don't want to send police there at 2 o'clock in the morning and have them steal everything from that guy, because he's not doing anything to harm me or my community. That I would make that choice, at least. And I think that if they had a great deal less money to be breaking down the doors of our neighbors, that would happen a lot less. They'd be a lot more selective about which crimes they were actually prosecuting. They might be more intent to address the rumors and complaints they have about, like, domestic abuse or some shit like that. That might get a little higher rung up on the ladder of priorities if they're not busting my next door neighbor for smoking pot. Anyway, continuing on. I got this little bit here on coinspectator.com, and this one is just kind of interesting for me, at least. I don't know, it seemed kind of interesting. Let's go for it. It's called Odem.io. Zug, Switzerland and Calgary, Alberta, December 17th, PR Newswire. In a pilot program unveiled today, ODEM, the creator of on-demand educational marketplace, is partnering with the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology to issue blockchain-based academic certificates to a select group of SAIT students. Blockchain certificates enable students to directly share their academic achievements with recruiters and potential employers around the world without requesting their paper and electronic records from SAIT. Quote, I'm very excited for SAIT, its students, faculty, and staff whose passion is to shape a new world as entrepreneurs and leaders, said Richard Mayhole, Odem's CEO. 25 graduates of SAIT's Automotive Service Technician program will receive blockchain certificates issued through the ODEM platform, a global education portal. The virtual certificates will... Come on. Damn it, they didn't give me the whole article. It's on Bazinga, I guess. The blockchain certificates enable students to directly share blah, blah, blah. I'm very excited for SAIT, its students, faculty, and those staff whose passion is to shape a new world as entrepreneurs and leaders, said Richard Manghole, ODEM's CEO. What a great way to fulfill their mission by becoming the first Canadian school to securely store and share its students' accomplishments with the world. 25 graduates of SAIT's Automotive Service Technician program will receive blockchain certificates issued through the ODEM platform, a global education portal. The virtual certificates will look just like traditional academic records, featuring the province of Alberta's coat of arms and SAIT's official seal. They will also include the signatures of the Institute's chairman of the board of directors, the president and CEO of the registrar. Quote, at SAIT, we are thought leaders, and this is a strong example of how we're increasing our value proposition, said David Ross, SAIT's president and CEO. This is only the beginning as we continue to put the potential of blockchain technology into practice. The idea of digitizing academic credentials at SAIT originated with students George Chase. The instructor in the School of Information and Communication Technologies worked with the students to present the concept of SAIT's leadership to SAIT's leadership. The idea was eventually expanded upon to create a full-scale solution for the institution. ODEM is developing its platform on the Ethereum blockchain to make higher education more accessible, affordable, transferable, and verifiable. The platform also empowers students to customize their education through interaction with educators. Its official rollout is scheduled for February of 2019. Blockchain technology. Number 1. Enables the creation of a decentralized repository to secure academic records in a format that is globally verifiable and transferable. Number 2. Allows self-permissioned peer-to-peer sharing of educational records with institutions, recruiting firms, and potential employers. Number 3. Facilitates the linking of academic records of students and their accomplishments over a lifetime of learning. Academic certificates issued on a blockchain generate a tamper-proof digital signature. The signature can be cross-referenced with the issuing institution's digital signature, allowing the students to control their academic records and provide real-time cryptographic proof of validity. Established in 1916, SAIT was the first publicly funded technical school of its kind in North America. Today, SAIT is a global leader in applied education and offers more than 100 career programs and more than 1,300 part-time courses. Action-based learning, solution-focused research, and enterprising collaborations with industry partners ensure SAIT students are career-ready when they graduate. Let's look at the comments. Let's at least see if there are any. There are none. With regard to this, I think it's an interesting idea. But the question is, who's going to be mining it? It's not going to be mined. It's going to be a token. So I'm assuming Ethereum will be the backing for it. And this would be what I would consider a quote-unquote utility token. Although I don't know that it's really important how it's or which currency it's stored on. They could just as easily be storing it on Doge and be just as reliable, and they wouldn't have to worry about Ethereum tanking in value. But that's just my opinion on it. I don't know. It's an interesting effort. I mean, if you're going to expand the global marketplace for labor and products to global, certainly it would probably help in marketing your skills. You know, I can't really imagine how I would market this or how what I do here. But of course, I don't have a certificate from this place, so you know, there's that. I can see some good things and some bad things about it. I mean, it's immutable. So if you do something wrong, or you don't do something right, or you don't do something on time, or so on and so forth, those things could all be held against you. And we're already seeing a little bit of that application an application of that idea in China with their relationship with Google and Facebook, and using social media scores to judge how people are treated in society. And I think it's probably pretty lame. I think that especially now in the age of information, where we can not only record information, we can also edit information, including video information and audio information. And that being the case, you can imagine that if somebody really wanted to fuck with you, developing, video, audio, and text evidence that they would like to hold against you would probably not be all that difficult. Photoshop does exist. We know this. Final Cut Pro does exist. And so, again, when we're holding people to standards on social media, to how we're going to treat them in the greater society or whatever, I don't think that's right. I think, if anything, being online should be the one place where you can say something and not worry about it impacting your credit record, or whether or not you get to ride in the front of the airplane, or whether or not a cab picks you up, so on and so forth. Freedom isn't free. and in the context where you would be judged especially harshly and probably a little bit unfairly based on your social media interactions. I can see where a lot of undue or intentional discrimination could take place, and for no other reason than somebody didn't like you, and didn't like you enough to talk a bunch of shit about you online. That's kind of unfortunate. Anyway, I got this other article here. It's Advisory Council of UAE Banks Federation considers adoption of blockchain in banks. This is published 4 hours ago by Helen Parts. Let's go ahead and refresh that. 6 hours ago by Helen Parts. So no penis. The Advisory Council of the United Arab Emirates Banks Federation, UBF, discussed applying blockchain in its member banks according to the Dubai-based English-language newspaper Gulf News on December 17th. The Advisory Council of UBF, a non-profit organization representing 50 member banks in the country, considered using blockchain to improve know-your-customer processes at entrant banks. UBF's chairman Abdulaziz Al-Jarrar claimed that the discussed initiative represents an effort to create and maintain a, quote, thriving banking ecosystem. Damn it, Jim. Originally, this is on Cointelegraph, and yes, it was by Helen Parts, so we got that much right. Let's see here. Participants also discussed issues pertaining to the country's digital transformation program and Emiratization, a government employment initiative to place its citizens in roles in the public and private sectors. Interesting. Aref Al-Ramli, chairperson of UBF's Digital Banking Committee, presented a blockchain-based study that explores the benefits of digitizing various processes within member banks via distributed ledger technology. The study has outlined a number of blockchain applications by banking institutions, including cross-border payments, compliance reporting, customer onboarding, and others. Al-Jarrar said that emerging technologies are, quote, continuing to shape customer needs and expectations, placing banking industry participants at the forefront of innovations. He also claimed that new technologies like blockchain can assist banks in creating new revenue streams, quote, which will in turn drive sustained business growth. Yeah, bullshit. In late November, the governmental AI and blockchain joint working group hosted an annual meeting that concluded with the launch of two initiatives intending to boost blockchain and artificial intelligence development. At the meeting, participants considered strategies to attract foreign investors and build the necessary infrastructure by using AI and blockchain. Also in November, Abu Dhabi-based Al Hilal Bank announced it completed, quote, the world's first Sukuk transaction based on blockchain technology. Sukuk, a legal tool that is known as a Sharia-compliant bond, allows investors to generate returns in compliance with Islamic law. Yeah. So, I don't know what to say about this. The private blockchain shit. That really doesn't make any sense to me, because you're invariably going to have a limited number of participants, and thus the idea that whatever the results of your processes are can be trusted is immediately under question to me. because we're probably not able to view your quote-unquote blockchain, and we're not able to mine it. So it might as well just be a database. It's good for sharing shit between parties and groups and departments and banks. That's about it. As far as transacting monetary value, the reason that we trust Bitcoin is because it's being done by public miners. There's nobody outside of it saying how the shit could go. There's just miners mining the shit, and the guy who wins. That's how it's supposed to work. But as far as these guys in the United Arab Emirates, best of luck to you. But like I said, without the public willingly and knowingly mining it, I don't know that I would put too much trust in your quote-unquote blockchain or the materials therein. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as what we were going to, I've already played some Anthrax. I would play the Buried in Me, Between the Buried and Me, but all the tracks are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they don't actually have the names on them, so whatever. Anyway, let's go. We already did that. We didn't do these guys. Let's go with Sway by Cold Chamber here on Coin Metal. And that was Lamb of God with Erase This. Yeah, it is an exciting world we have before us in crypto still. And I believe that we're on the threshold of it being even better. But not through regulation or any particular company acting as a hub for all of our transactions or anything like that. I think it will be a additional interest jump in the people that want to participate in these markets, and not just as speculators or traders or end users, but as miners and as exchanges. It's the informal nature of cryptocurrency that allows us to do the wonderful things that we can with it. But that being the case, we don't necessarily have to involve anyone additional to make it happen. And that being the case means we can also reduce the cost to ourselves and others by doing it via crypto instead of our traditional means. You know, I've said it a lot on this show that nature doesn't endure any friction that it doesn't have to. And I believe the same case will be meted out in crypto as it expresses itself over the next few years. And the tendency to try and get back down to monopolies and whatnot, I think they'll be kind of proven to be stupid in the long term. that people that do lock down those monetary monopoly positions will find themselves circumvented at all ends. And so then it'll be a matter of trying to maintain their current position and then slowly losing ground there too. You know, they've been able to deflect a little bit of the profit that should be going into cryptocurrencies via stable coins, but that, I believe, will go away too. We've watched multiple toxic elements erupt in this space and then die in this space, and it's just a matter of time. And that being said, I think we've got a lot more time than they do. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody's going to do it for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. Until Wednesday, you'll be able to find me on Twitter, on Facebook under Frank Dashwood, or Coin Metal, just hashtag Coin Metal. Or you'll be able to find me in the Discord or the Telegram chat room for Verge Currency. And so until Wednesday, I want you all to have an excellent evening. And so for our last dance, we're going to go ahead and throw down some Ministry. Let's go! Here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening. Good night.